I used to believe people died from war, disease, or accidents. I never imagined my death would come from delivering a package to Jeff Bezos's wedding. I never thought it would begin with the sound of water slapping against the side of a boat, with the scent of white orchids from the bridal bouquet I was holding, or with the strange look from a woman in a yellow dress who walked past me as if I didn't exist. And maybe at that moment, I truly didn't exist, not in the way this world defines it. My name is Jordan Miller. I'm 28 years old, a contract delivery driver for Amazon's Venice branch. I wasn't born in Italy. I was born in Texas, but I moved here last year after a breakup, looking for a fresh start. I chose Venice because I thought the city had something romantic about it, something artistic, something that made you believe in beauty. But the truth is, I never had the time to feel romantic about anything. I lived in a small 2-story apartment with no air conditioning. I worked every day from 8 in the morning until every last package was delivered. Delivering in Venice isn't like delivering anywhere else. You don't get a truck. There are no highways. You get boats. You get narrow alleys. And you get slippery stone steps from the Middle Ages that make you breathe like an ox every time you carry something across them. I used to think I was building a future, but slowly I realized I was just building steps for others to climb. People often asked me if working for Amazon was interesting. I would just smile, because I knew they weren't asking to hear an answer. They were asking to fill the silence. And I had gotten used to living in silences like that. But that day, the day I was assigned to deliver something to Jeff Bezos's wedding, something in my heart beat differently. Not because I admired him, but because I was curious. Curious about what lay on the other side of that gilded gate. Curious about how someone who once ruled the empire I worked for actually lived. I received the bouquet from someone in charge. They told me I had to deliver it to the Madonna del Orto church before 9 in the morning, no exceptions. I remember staring at the flowers for a long time, not because they were beautiful, but because it was the first time in my life I had seen flowers treated like high-end electronics. Someone followed me the entire way. Another person checked my documents 3 times, even though I was wearing my company uniform. And a strange question kept echoing in my head. Was this bouquet worth more than my monthly paycheck? I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I didn't know the answer. I walked along the canal. The sky was heavy, like Venice itself was holding its breath. I felt my heart pounding not from nerves, but from exhaustion. I hadn't eaten breakfast. I had only slept 3 hours the night before, and the 2 energy drinks I had for lunch yesterday were still the only thing in my system. I used to think I was strong. Turns out I wasn't. By the time I reached the 4th staircase, my vision blurred. My ears rang like radio static. My hands shook, and the bouquet slipped from my grasp. I collapsed. No one caught me. No one called my name. There were only high heels clicking past me, and a camera shutter snapping pictures of someone behind me. In the moment my body hit the ground, I thought maybe I had just fainted. But then I saw myself lying there. I even saw the woman in the yellow dress watching me from a distance with an expression that said she knew I was about to leave. And I did leave. But I didn't float upward. I stood still, as if something or something was holding me back to say, not yet, there's still something more. And I wondered, if I had truly died, why was I still conscious? And if I were still conscious, who else was watching with me? Next, I'll tell you what I saw in the very first moment after I stepped out of this world, and why my death didn't lead me away, but straight back to myself. Have you ever wondered if the soul exists? Does it know how long you've been quietly fading while still alive? I haven't always been a delivery worker, and I haven't always been the exhausted person wandering the damp alleys of Venice. Once, I was a little boy painting watercolors using leftover coffee jars my mother saved each week. I used to believe the world was made of colors, of light and feeling. I believed a painting could make someone stop, take a breath, and truly feel, instead of just passing through life like a machine. I once had a simple dream, to open a small art shop in a quiet town, where I could brew coffee and tell stories through images. But bills don't tell stories. They just demand to be paid. Debts don't care about color. They only care about due dates. I left college in my 3rd year to start working. At first, it was supposed to be temporary. Then the temporary became permanent. I lived temporarily. I loved it temporarily. I breathed temporarily. And slowly, I forgot what I used to want. Have you ever felt like you were living someone else's life? Like someone from a distance had taken your hand and drawn roads on your map you never agreed to follow? That's how I felt every time I looked in the mirror. Every time I put on my uniform. Every time I lowered my head for an angry customer who forgot to say thank you. I once joked with a coworker that Jeff Bezos had rewritten the map of global labor. But inside, I wondered if he could truly see us, one by one. Would he recognize the person who packed the wedding bouquet for his bride? And if I stood in front of him, not in uniform, not holding a scanner, but just as a human being, would he smile? I know I shouldn't think like that. Thoughts don't pay rent. Dreams don't buy dinner. But still, on certain days, when I stood on one of Venice's old bridges and watched the sunset fall over the city, I'd feel a quiet sigh rising from within me, as if my soul was remembering something it once promised. Something I had forgotten. There were nights when the city lit up and I stood alone in the middle of San Polo Square, not to take in the view, but because my legs didn't have the strength to go home just yet. Maybe it was also because my heart needed a moment of silence. At those times, I'd look up at the glowing windows and wonder who lived inside. What were they talking about? Was someone painting a picture? Or was it just a family gathered around the dinner table, something I hadn't known since I left home? As a child, I used to believe that when I grew up, I'd be different from everyone else. I'd do something meaningful, something beautiful, something uniquely mine. But the older I got, the more I blended in until I couldn't tell where I ended and the world began. And the most frightening thing isn't losing your dream. It's living long enough to forget you ever had one. I kept telling myself, when I have time, I'll start painting again. But time never came, only the next shift. When I have money, I'll take a week off and go to Florence. But the money never stayed, only the bills did. Have you ever lived with the feeling that you're being postponed from yourself? As if your real life is waiting for you at the final stop of a train you can never quite reach, because you're stuck on the ride that never ends. Every day, I delivered packages to glittering villas and luxury hotels. I saw people in tailored suits, laughing loudly, raising glasses of wine, while I stood outside the frame, like a shadow. I wasn't jealous. I just felt invisible. I used to believe hard work would take me somewhere. But now I'm not so sure. Because if the price of progress is losing the person inside you, then what exactly are we chasing? I don't blame anyone. I just feel the ache of having traded too much without realizing it. Maybe life doesn't take anything from us. It just hands us a mirror and lets us decide who we want to be in the reflection. In the next part, I'll show you what I saw the moment I stepped outside my body, a place where there were no clocks, no pressure, only truth. And that truth wasn't comfortable, because the first thing I had to face was myself. Not the version I wanted the world to see, but the part of me I had buried deep. The question is, are you brave enough to look at yourself when there's nothing left to hide behind? And I began to wonder if the soul carries memory. Would it be disappointed watching me live like this? In the next part, I'll tell you what happened the moment I left my body, when I saw not only the light, but also someone I never expected to meet, and the first thing they said to me changed everything. Have you ever considered that after death, the first presence you may face won't be God, but your truest self? I didn't feel the impact. There was no sound of breaking bones, no screams, just a sudden, perfect stillness, as if someone had reached out and turned off the world. But the silence wasn't frightening. It was crystal clear, like a winter morning where every sound is frozen in place. I saw my body lying on its side across the stone steps, the bouquet fallen from my hand, a single white petal carried gently by the breeze toward the narrow canal behind me. I saw people walk past. Some turned to look, some didn't, and I saw myself standing there, as if I were the third person in my own story. I didn't rise into the sky. I didn't fall to the ground. I hovered in a soft layer of light, no wind, no sense of time, only the unmistakable awareness that I still existed, but no longer belonged to the physical world. I could see everything with a clarity I had never known. Not just with my eyes, but with my consciousness. I didn't have to look to know. I didn't have to hear to understand. And then I felt someone standing behind me. I turned around and saw a man in a long, ash-colored coat. His face wasn't sharply defined, but it wasn't unfamiliar either. His eyes didn't reflect that they pulled. Looking into them was like looking straight into my memory. He didn't tell me his name, but I knew who he was. Not God, not an angel. He was an ancient version of myself, a part of my soul I had long forgotten from some life so far away I couldn't trace it. He didn't scold me. He only asked, "Why have you abandoned yourself for so long?" I had no answer. I had never thought about it. I only knew how to keep going, to push through, to endure. But I had never stopped to ask whether my soul was happy. And maybe you haven't either. Maybe your soul has been quietly asking the same question, feeling betrayed not by the world, but by you. We work, we love, we fight. But do we ever pause and ask, am I still being honest with myself? Before me, a corridor of light opened. With every step I took, a memory appeared, not grand moments, but the small, hidden ones. The time I lied to my mother. The time I hurt someone I loved, because I was afraid they'd leave me. The time I laughed at someone else's pain, just so I wouldn't feel my own. And I wept not from shame, but from surprise. I had no idea my soul had remembered everything. Every last thing. So maybe every action, no matter how small, leaves a mark on the soul. And if that's true, what are we etching into our souls each day? What I witnessed next was something beyond this world, a vision that changed how I see everything, including Bezos and every wealthy person I once viewed through a certain lens. But before I take you there, I want to ask you something. And I want you to answer not with words, but with the silence inside your own heart. If you died tomorrow, would you be satisfied with the story you're writing? As the corridor of light widened, I didn't walk in the way we understand walking. I was guided through awareness. Each step wasn't a movement, but a layer of truth being revealed. There were no clocks, no space as we know it, only layers of understanding that opened based on how ready I was to see. I no longer saw Venice. I no longer saw the stone bridge where I had collapsed. Only fragments of memory floated like reels of film, not showing what I had lived, but what I had forgotten how to dream, how to love, how to forgive. One memory glowed brighter than the rest. As I came closer, I saw the image of my father, the man I hadn't spoken to since I was 19. He stood there, not older or younger, but somehow more real than I had ever remembered him. He didn't scold me. He didn't ask why I disappeared during my grandmother's funeral. He just looked at me, as if he knew how much it hurt me not to find the courage to hug him one last time. And I understood then, in this realm, no one is condemned. There is only truth, exposed without defense. No more reasons. No more excuses. No more pretending. Just the raw, pure essence of who we are, facing what we've been. And if you think that light is only beautiful, then you are mistaken. The light was also a mirror. And mirrors don't choose to reflect only the most flattering parts. I saw the moment I refused to help an elderly woman because I was running late on a delivery. The moment I pretended not to hear a homeless man calling out because I didn't want to be bothered. The moment I told someone I loved them, even though my heart had already grown cold. And I realized that every single choice, no matter how small, shapes the architecture of the soul. No action is invisible in the world of light. So if we're living as though no one sees us, could it be that we're completely misunderstanding the spiritual weight of our consequences? I stood before a massive doorway made of pure energy. A voice echoed within me, not in sound, but in knowing that if I passed through, I would see something not every soul is ready to receive. I asked myself, am I brave enough? I didn't know the answer, but I stepped forward, because if I had truly died, then I wanted that death to mean something. Next, I will share what I saw beyond that doorway, a place with no cities, no names, only the truth behind every soul's choice, even the choice to be born into poverty or privilege. And what I witnessed there changed the way I see Jeff Bezos. It changed the way I see myself, and it changed the way I see you. Have you ever considered that your soul may have chosen this life, every struggle, every wound, for a reason beyond anything the human mind can grasp? When I stepped through the door of light, the first thing I felt wasn't a place, it was a frequency. As if my entire consciousness had been tuned to match a field of energy so pure, there was no judgment, no right or wrong, only truth existing as it truly is. I saw souls not with bodies, not with names, but I knew exactly who they were. Some had once been emperors. Some had been beggars. Some had just reincarnated a few years ago. Others had chosen hundreds of lifetimes before returning again. And they all sat beside one another, equal, quiet, like students in a classroom with no teacher. I didn't ask, but the answer appeared within me. This was the place where souls chose their next life. No one was forced. Each soul, before being born, would review the lessons they still needed to learn, the emotions they had not yet felt, the roles they were willing to take on. Some chose wealth to learn how to let go of control. Some chose poverty to learn gratitude. Some chose betrayal to learn forgiveness. And some chose anonymity, to understand that true worth has nothing to do with fame. I was stunned. I had always believed life was an unfair lottery, random, unjust, and stacked against some of us. But I was wrong. There was no randomness, only choice. No punishment, only agreement. And my soul had chosen to be Jordan Miller. Not because I was less valuable, but because I was ready for the lesson my soul believed mattered most. I had chosen to be a nameless delivery driver at the wedding of the man who once led the world, not to envy him, but to remember that light does not rank by bank balance. And I had chosen that death not to end, but to awaken. So if every soul once chose their life, then what lesson are you learning right now? And if you refuse to learn it, do you believe your soul will choose a similar life all over again? I know this may be hard to hear, but it's the truth. And the truth doesn't need to be comfortable to be real. In the next part, I'll share what was offered to me at the end of this soul journey. Not a reward, not salvation, but a new choice. A chance to return. But this time, I wouldn't just return to my body. I would return carrying a new truth. And you might be surprised to learn that the reason I chose to live again had nothing to do with me. It was because of another soul. Have you ever considered that someone beyond yourself might have chosen their entire life just to meet you in one single moment? I didn't leave that place the instant I understood I had chosen my life. Because in the realm of souls, understanding is only the beginning. Acceptance is the true test. I remained among countless points of light, each one learning its lesson. And I saw a circle, an invisible network of souls orbiting one another, connected by threads as delicate as spider silk, yet stronger than anything found in the physical world. One soul among them glowed with a light that wasn't brighter or more powerful, but unmistakably familiar. As I focused on that energy, an image began to form. A little girl, not from the future, but from possibility. A soul that had not yet chosen her next life, still hovering between many paths. And in one of those paths, I had saved her during a moment that seemed so small it had slipped from my memory. A day when I stopped my cart to let a family cross in the cold rain of Venice. She had been just a child on vacation with her parents. I didn't remember it, but my soul did, because that brief moment changed a timeline. And that changed me. The little girl had been saved from that accident. And then, in another timeline, as she grew older, she became the one person who would tell a young man on the verge of taking his own life that he still had worth. One sentence, one life saved, one simple act rippling through generations, creating a circle of cause and effect that spanned across lifetimes. I sat there, surrounded by souls learning the lesson of influence, and I understood that no action is small, no moment is meaningless, and no soul is ever insignificant. Whether you're Jeff Bezos or Jordan Miller, each of us is a vital link in the endless rotation of life. And the question is not how important we are, but what we leave behind in the eyes of those we touch. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. But something inside me melted, not my soul, but the thick layer of dust I had let settle over it through years of unconscious living. I used to think I was just a delivery worker, but now I know I am a soul on a journey. And so are you. I will tell you about the moment I stood at the final choice, to return or to continue into another lesson. And what brought me back wasn't regret for this life. It was remembering a promise I had made long before I was born. A promise tied to someone I've never met, but who has always been connected to me through an invisible thread. Have you ever considered that maybe someone else is still alive today because you haven't yet fulfilled an old promise? I stood at the threshold between two planes of existence. It wasn't heaven or hell, but something like a soul corridor, where choices weren't made through thought, but through the full agreement of consciousness. In front of me was a glowing circular gate, radiating a completely different frequency, no images, no promises, just the overwhelming sense of something ancient and deeply true. That gate would have led me to a deeper level of learning, not through human life, but through a higher form of existence. But I didn't walk through it, because just as I was about to step forward, an image appeared in my awareness, as clearly as if a name had been spoken aloud in an empty square. It was my mother, not as she was in the present, but as the woman who silently wept the day I left home, the woman who held my hand in the hospital after my car accident at 16, the woman who always believed I wasn't born to serve a system, but to light something up in this world. She didn't appear in human form, but as a warm strand of energy that touched me, soft as breath, deep as memory. And I remembered an old promise, not one spoken aloud, but a soul-level commitment made before birth. I had vowed to live fully, no matter the form I took, to complete my lesson with courage and awareness. I didn't choose to return because I was afraid of dying, or because I longed for life. I came back because there was still something I had to do, not for the world, but for myself. Because a soul cannot move on to the next lesson without honoring its last vow. And I had vowed not to live as a shadow. When I chose to return, I felt a gentle force pulling me, not dragging me back, but lifting me, as if the physical world itself had opened its arms to receive me again. The light began to fade. The corridor dissolved. And then I heard the sound of my heartbeat. It wasn't someone else's heartbeat, it was mine. Strong. Urgent. Alive. I opened my eyes in the hospital. Doctors and nurses surrounded me. The machines were still beeping steadily. From the hallway, I heard my mother's cry, her trembling voice calling my name as if it were the final thread tethering me to this world. And I knew I had returned. But I was no longer the same. I wasn't Jordan Miller, delivery driver. I was the soul of Jordan, the one who had forgotten who he was, now remembering the mission he came here for. My life changed after that experience, not in some Hollywood miracle kind of way, but through small, steady conscious shifts. And more importantly, I'll share why I believe you, too, carry an old promise, one that's quietly waiting for you to remember. Have you ever felt that you were born not just to exist, but to fulfill something deeply important you've never quite been able to name? I didn't wake up like in the movies. I didn't cry or shout supernatural revelations. I simply opened my eyes and breathed one slow, deep breath, as if for the first time I truly understood what it meant to be alive. The first thing I felt wasn't pain. It was gratitude. Gratitude for being given another chance. But this time, I didn't want to restart my old life. I wanted to live the life my soul had chosen. In the days after I was discharged, I spent more time walking, not to deliver packages, but to feel the city I had once only passed through. I saw the narrow alleys with new eyes, not as work routes, but as ancient veins carrying memory through a 1,000-year-old city. I looked at customers who had once frustrated me with empathy, understanding that they, too, might be carrying heavy lessons of their own. I started painting again, not much, just a few sketches on sidewalk corners, a few watercolors on scraps of old cardboard. But each stroke felt like a thread pulling me back to my true self. I didn't quit my job right away, but I changed how I did it. With every package I delivered, I began to include a small handwritten note, a single sentence of encouragement, a quiet seed of light. Not because I wanted to change the world, but because I had come to understand one thing: a single moment of kindness, no matter how small, can save a soul standing on the edge of despair. I didn't tell anyone about my near-death experience. Not because I was afraid they wouldn't believe me, but because I wasn't ready to put into words something deeper than language itself. I knew the day would come when I'd speak, but that day hadn't come yet. Except for once. I met the little girl again. She didn't remember me, but I knew it was the same soul I had seen in the realm of light. She smiled as I handed her a package, and she thanked me with eyes that glowed like sunlight dancing on water. I stood there a few seconds longer than usual, not because I wanted to be seen again, but because I understood now that it had all been real. I had truly crossed over and come back. I had seen. I had known, and I had stayed to live in alignment with that truth. The first time I shared the full story was with a stranger. Their reaction made me realize something else: awakening is never just personal. It spreads. It stirs something. It calls out to every soul still sleeping inside a human body, asking it to rise and live again. Have you ever wondered if maybe you're the one who will awaken someone, through a single sentence, a quiet glance, or an action that seems so small no one even notices? I never went on television. I didn't write a book or host seminars. But one late afternoon in Santa Maria Formosa Square, I sat beside a man who was crying. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for advice. He just said one sentence, a sentence that pulled me back to the moment my soul had left my body. I've lived too long without knowing what I'm living for. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need to know the story behind it. I simply shared part of my journey with him. Not the strange part. Not the lights or the souls. Just the truest part. The part where I had forgotten who I was. And he was quiet. Then he said, "I used to paint." And I understood it wasn't me who awakened him. Truth speaks when it meets another truth. Like two strings tuned to the same frequency, when one is plucked, the other vibrates in sympathy. No touch required. After that day, I started sharing my story more often. Sometimes just a few lines in a journal I left behind in a coffee shop. Sometimes a brief conversation with a tourist. And once, it was a letter I wrote to my 18-year-old self. I didn't need anyone to believe me. I just needed to remind someone that they had chosen this life. And if they chose it, there must have been a reason. Each day now, I live more slowly, deeper. I no longer feel like a victim. I'm the one writing the script for my journey. And I've chosen to awaken. Not to be special, but to live as I truly am. I still work. I still pay bills. I still get tired. But in every exhaustion, I no longer feel empty. I see the lesson. I see other souls learning too. And that has made me feel less alone than ever. I returned to the bridge where I once collapsed, not to deliver a package, but simply to stand still. And I whispered thank you, not because I died, but because that death allowed me to live for the first time. I end this story not to close it, but to open a question for you. If you were to die right now, would you be at peace with the person you've become? And if the answer is no, then what's keeping you from living as a soul who knows it has a purpose? Are you willing to lay down the role and return to your true self? Because maybe, just maybe, you once promised to live fully before you forgot who you were.